thinking that our fear is real actually makes us, from God's perspective, quite crazy and nutters. Right? Because we do a whole heap of things that are so illogical. Like, going to war is a very illogical way to address your fear. But we've done that for millennia. We have. Marrying someone because they'll provide you with safety and security is the worst possible thing you could do for your own happiness. But we do it all the time. In fact, the majority of us in our life have done it. Right? So, you know, this is an example of where we're just, like I said, we're just nuts. We've just gone nuts. We've gone nuts on making fear our God. Yeah. Thanks, Tara.
So the world pretty much believes that we were given fear for the, fight, flight, freeze response as well. Back when we were cavemen and running from the tiger, the fear. So God didn't give us that, obviously, but the safety thing, like that's so. Fear of our safety is still.
Yeah. Now what you're doing is you're confusing the animal with the soul.
Right.
Do you understand? Like, let me explain what I mean by that. This is you, one half of a soul, right? And you have two bodies. One is a spiritual body and one is a physical body, right? And this is your soul, or one half of your soul, because remember you've got a soulmate. Okay? Now God directly created what? This, did he not? This was directly created by God.
Yep.
Right? Who knows how the other things came into being, but for the majority of us, how they came into being was conception. So rather than chasing it right back to the beginning, let's look at what's happening now, conception. So you could say these two bodies were created through the conception process. Okay? So conception. And this particular body, this one, is the one that we can see. That's the thing we see with our eyes, right? So that's the thing we think we are. So the majority of you believe you're the body you are, in the body you are. But the reality is your soul exists without that body. Your soul can exist without that body. And your soul can actually exist without a spirit body too, as once it gets into a union condition with the other half. It can exist without a spirit body too. So both bodies are basically immaterial to your long-term existence if you continue to progress God's way. But this body is the thing we see. And this body has a whole lot of what I would classify as appetites, passions, desires that are driven by necessity. In other words, if you think about eating, well, obviously that's something that's driven by the appetite of the physical body. The physical body, the brain, sends an alarm to yourself saying that actually we need sustenance now. And the same applies to water, thirst, and so forth, right? So there's a whole lot of what I would classify as physiological responses needed to sustain the physical body, including the effluent system of our physical body. That's all part and parcel of that, right? Yeah. Okay. And what we often do is we then allow these appetites, passions, and desires of the physical body to dominate how the soul acts. Do you follow?
I think so.
Right. So what we do is we say, right, the physical body needs sex. So that means I'm going to go and muck around with any woman that comes along. It doesn't really matter. The physical body needs to be safe. So what I'm going to do is make sure the physical body remains safe. None of that is actually true, the way God's created it. Your soul is safe no matter whether your physical body disappears or not. Yeah. So it's not really true. It's just that we've come to believe it's true because we've also separated ourselves from God, therefore from God's education, therefore from God's truth, and so forth.
So it's our physical body that we're afraid of losing.
It is. Yeah. Ironically, it's not even our soul that we're afraid of losing. It's our physical body because we think our physical body is our soul. right? The instant you pass, or shortly thereafter, you'll realise that your physical body wasn't your soul. And so you know what you'll then assume, like most do, that their spirit body is their soul. And then they live that same way they used to live, right, within their physical body, connecting to their spirit body. But that's also not your soul from God's perspective. And once you understand the truth of that, you don't allow the soul to be driven by the appetites of the bodies.
Yeah.
The soul becomes the part of you that drives your attitudes and behaviours, not your bodies. So, for example, if you had the choice of, killing somebody else and eating them in order to survive, the soul would scream at you about that particular problem if you were in a harmony with love, and so you wouldn't do it even if you're going to die as a result of it. But historically, most people are body-centric. And so shortly after my death in the 1st century, the Roman army encamped Jerusalem and laid siege to Jerusalem for 4 years. There was no food going in and out or anything. And in the end, the mothers were having children just to eat them. That's what was happening. Fear was driving them so much to survive that's what they did. It's shocking, isn't it? But that's an illustration of how the physical body, when we allow its appetites and desires and passions, it drives what happens to our soul then. And this is our problem, is that because we don't know the truth, so this is an issue of truth, we then become physical body centric, and then of course all of the physical body maintenance issues are all now supreme in our mind, and they become the driving factor of our life. Right? Which is a big problem in terms of the exercise of the loving will of our soul. Because now what we've got is our physical bodies, appetites, passions and desires driving our soul, rather than our soul choosing love and to act in harmony with love. Our soul is now being, the mind is choosing things for the soul instead. Can you see that's a big problem? And historically there's been many very, very shocking things happen as a result of that. Yep. Right. Yeah. So I see this mistake frequently made, where people are allowing, and it happens in the spirit world too, where they're actually allowing the spirit body's mind to drive the survival of the spirit body's mind driving the actual process of the soul, rather than the soul having the power to control everything. Right? So it's a big issue in terms of our conception. When I say not the conception of ourselves as bodies, but the conception, the way that we interpret information in our mind is driven by these passions and desires and if we could feel our soul, we wouldn't do that. We would do something completely different. Amber?